running back tier list. Let's do it.
What's up, guys? So we're gonna do like a running back tier list, and we're just gonna jump right into it. This is my tier rankings, and hopefully this helps you out when you're drafting. And if not, hopefully that's the agenda, right, to help you out, but give you some insight and maybe help you draft or not draft somebody else. But we'll jump right into it. S tier. Let's do Christian McCaffrey. I think that is easily um, inarguably, we can just do Christian McCaffrey. I don't even think I have to talk much about it. That dude averaged so many receptions last season. Um, it was insane. So yeah, Christian McCaffrey, and they're going so Brees Hall and all these other guys. They're going around Christian McCaffrey, but they're not. They're just not in the same tier. So they haven't put up the same amount of points. I believe Christian McCaffrey was 100 points ahead of Brees Hall, the next best running back. So I think it's only fair to throw Brees Hall up there. Improved offense. Aaron Rodgers is coming back. That's like affects a ton. Opens up the receiving game for Brees. So he can maybe take a little bit off of himself and maybe create more efficient plays. But yeah, Brees Hall. Next up, I would be putting Bijan. I do love Bijan here. Um, he is in line for a huge workload. Arthur Smith leaving, and they're just. Raheem Morris is overstating that they want to run the ball. They want to run the ball. So run first offense. He can handle the workload. Reminds me of it like a Saquon in his freshman rookie year, sophomore year-ish, on terms of efficiency. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he does. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He's great. I wouldn't even be surprised if he threw a couple this year. Next up, I would honestly put in, and this is based off of, like I said a couple of videos ago, I'm working on a video to explain running back breakouts and kind of that it's about how running backs, what they see in the season before they break out, and hopefully I get that out. It's just like kind of a lot of data that I have to crunch through. But anyways, Jonathan Taylor finished up there. He was RB1 a couple years ago, and he had a weird situation last season with a holdout, with an injury. But now, even with Anthony Richardson, I don't see a problem taking him. I genuinely don't. I think he's going to put up solid numbers, and kind of how I like to put people in my A tier, I like to put them in A with people that could jump up into S tier, or could fall down, barring an injury or a holdout or whatever case it may be, a trade, blah, 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 blah. But right now, what I know, I do believe that Jonathan Taylor, Bijan, and Brees Hall could push themselves into S tier. They could have a monstrous season. Not saying that they would dethrone Christian McCaffrey, but who knows? Maybe we could have two running backs at S tier, and those are the people that I would really like to target. Christian McCaffrey comes at a high price, whereas these three have a chance to go up to S tier, but their value is at A already. So they're low risk, high reward type things. So, yeah, these guys are studs. We'll move on, and we'll go ahead and grab. I think this one is my questionable one, but I'm going to grab Jahmyr Gibbs here and slide him up to A tier. I know I'm hopping over Saquon, or maybe, let's see who else is in here. Maybe Kyron Williams. I'm not hopping over too many people, but that's how I feel. I do feel as if Jahmyr Gibbs' receiving upside has the chance to push him into S tier and be a solid A tier value. But I think his situation is great. They have like the fifth best offensive line. He has huge receiving upside. David Montgomery is still there, but later in the season he was still there after David Montgomery came back from an injury, and him and Jahmyr were both healthy, and Jahmyr was outproducing him in every single way. And the Lions are going to be really good. So you want to draft players on really good teams. The 49ers, good team. Jets, projected to be a good team. tough division, so we'll see how Aaron Rodgers responds. The Falcons, they're a little bit behind, but I think Bijan's talent will carry him through. And then the Colts are actually better than a lot of people expect. So I have the Colts. I'm high on the Colts this year, and then the Lions, one game away from the Super Bowl. Uh, Next up, that will wrap up my A tier actually. So next up, I will be throwing Kyron Williams in there. So his receiving upside is phenomenal. I think he was averaging somewhere between 5 targets to 5 point something targets per game, which is absolutely insane for a running back. It will help him project, and like I said, I draft players that will be able to elevate themselves into the next tier and put them based off of the tier underneath them, which I do think Kyron has a chance to push himself into A tier. I do think his team and a couple other factors with um, I think the way that, yeah, honestly, the team, the Rams, they don't necessarily speak to me in a way that they're going to support an RB1. Um, but like I said, I mean, I draft players. I think anyone in B tier does still have a chance to become S tier. Um, which, yeah, I mean, Kyron Williams, I just kind of made that argument in my brain and thought about it. But yeah, I think Kyron Williams definitely has a chance to be RB1. I do think it will be dropping once we drop into C tier, D tier, E tier, blah, blah, blah. The chances, I guess, anyone could be RB1, but the chances are a little bit lower. But we'll go ahead and move on. Yeah, Kyron Williams. So next up, I do have myself some Saquon. I mean, he's on the Eagles. It's a little frustrating, but that he's going to be dealing with Jalen Hurts and trying to fight for red zone touches in there. But maybe if they want to preserve the health of Jalen Hurts and just make sure he's good to go, that they just hand the ball off to their guy. And if not, it's okay. But that's why he's in B tier, not in A tier. It's definitely a thought to put him in A tier. He's on like I said, good running backs on good teams. But the situation is a little different. They have a running quarterback that has a real nose for the red zone, whereas the Colts, they have a nose for the Anthony Richardson has a nose for the red zone, but he was a rookie last season. He missed a lot of last season. I do think that they ask him to tone it down, but Jonathan Taylor is a beast. But anyways, yeah, I do think Saquon's a little bit older. He's kind of going into his veteran years of his career, but he's still very efficient. I wouldn't like write him off as a veteran running back, blah blah blah. But he's just getting up there, and but he's still efficient. He's really good, and he's on a really good team. So I do think B tier is his fit. Yeah, I mean next up, I'm gonna do Derrick Henry, game script dependent Derrick Henry. I do think he's 30 years old, so I do think a lot of people are going to be questioning that. But with that, I looking into the stats and everything, and I did a player breakdown if you guys want to watch that video, where he's still really efficient. He's just game script dependent. The years where the Titans were good, he did phenomenal. Years that the Titans weren't as good, he did all right. And I don't think his age isn't showing any any signs of slowing down for him. He did have a one down year when he was injured, but he had almost like 400 carries, I want to say. He was so far up there. It was insane. And anyone that's going to handle that many touches, they're going to break down at some point, especially a running back like him where he came back super healthy and he knows how to manage his body really well, and yeah, that's why he's here. But next up, Isaiah Pacheco on the best team in football. And like I said, I did a breakdown. So this one's going to be real quick. I did a breakdown on Kyron Williams, Derrick Henry, and Isaiah Pacheco. So go ahead and check that video out if you want to see who you should draft in that instance if it comes to you. But yeah, Isaiah Pacheco, he's on a great team. Averages, I believe, 3.5 receptions a game, which is really good for running back. You need some receiving upside. It could only go up. He has a good red zone attempt share. So, yeah, Isaiah Pacheco belongs in this realm. So this one's a little questionable. We're going to move on to C tier. Honestly, I might just change my rankings right now. Yeah, let's do Travis Etienne B tier. B tier. He's the last running back in B tier. I do think they kind of stepped back, and I think it's kind of ranked in order of this for me in terms of like high risk, high reward, and their ceiling and stuff like that. But maybe not. Travis Etienne can kind of move around wherever he wants. So just discard Travis Etienne. He has a super high ceiling. He did really good multiple weeks, RB1 in fantasy last year. He was crushing it. They have come out and said that they want to take some touches away from him and kind of let him breathe, let him be less injury prone or less risk for injury because they still want to be a good team and compete. But yeah, I do think Travis Etienne belongs in this tier. Yeah, I can do that. Next up, Josh Jacobs. So there's years that he was super efficient. There's years that he wasn't. There's years that he was super productive. There's years that he super was not productive. Yeah, I do think he has tremendous upside. He's on a good team. Not one of the best teams in football, but he's on a good team for sure. I'm a Vikings fan, and I'll admit it. The Packers are going to be good this year. Yeah, I do think he's been efficient at the Raiders, and his upside there has shown that he can be phenomenal in Green Bay. So I think he belongs here. He can anyone could be RB1 once again, but I do think the running backs ahead of him are in tiers separate of him. So yeah, we'll move on. I'm gonna throw in Kenneth Walker. I love Kenneth Walker. I think he's a great value in drafts. His efficiency is a little low at times, but I really like him. I don't know why. He's a solid. He's a stud. He can do whatever you need him to do, and you could throw him in as your RB2, as your RB. It'd be a little nerve-wracking having him as my RB1. You better have stacked receivers pushing that, but if he's your RB2, RB3 on your team, yeah, I mean, that's no problem. Yeah, Kenneth Walker's solid. He's an RB1 on his own team, and I don't think he's in danger of having his job taken away by Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet's been good, but not that good. I think Kenneth is solid, and we'll kind of rock and roll with him. Next up, got Rachaad White. I think he's been very efficient. This BC tier, they can kind of maybe blend at times because they both are really good. Like I said, though, Rachaad White's not in a tier with Kyren Williams, Saquon, Derrick Henry, Isaiah, Travis. Yeah, I mean, the second half of his last season, he was solid. The first half, it kind of took him some ins and outs, but maybe that was because the offense was kind of trying to get rolling with Baker Mayfield, and then they finally hit their stride, and then they extended Baker. So I do think that this season will resemble somewhat of last season. So, or the second half of last season. But yeah, I think Rachaad White's solid. Next up, Alvin Kamara. And I do think that Alvin, he's getting up there in age, but he's still efficient. I don't know how he still is, and he hasn't seen a tremendous drop off of inefficiency. I think they have Kendre Miller, yes, but I don't think that'll eat away at what he's got going on. He's at the back half of C tier for me for sure, just because he's getting older, and at some point it's gonna drop, and I get weary. And that's why maybe Derrick Henry, I'm not as high as maybe other people's on him, just because I'm worried about that, what's around the corner. But you got to worry about previous stats and the now and not what could happen. And yeah, I think Alvin Kamara belongs in the C tier. He's super solid. You could start him as your RB2, RB3. That's one of the ones where I'd like to have an RB1 ahead of him. But if you're going 0 RB and you don't... 0 RB, not hero RB draft strategy. So, yeah. Next up, Devon Achane. So, he is a little riskier when it comes to a lot of plays. And that's just because he only played 10 games last season. Raheem Mostert finished as like RB2, RB3, something like that last season, RB4. And Raheem Mostert is however old he is, 30, 31, 32, maybe. Which is questionable because at some point he will have an efficiency drop off, which is Devon Achane just there to pick up that workload. Who knows? So we'll kind of have to keep rocking and rolling with that and feel it out. But he was wildly efficient when he was playing. That's the problem. He could put you up 25 fantasy points with 10 touches for you, and it was too easy at that point. So I think Devon Achane definitely doesn't belong in D tier. I would put him ahead of Alvin Kamara even, and maybe honestly I would have him just because of his high reward. His draft value is a little bit higher, so it's kind of a little bit more riskier. But I would put him based off of value ahead of Kenneth Walker and maybe on par with Josh Jacobs. But yeah, last running back in this C tier, Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon was efficient, barely last season. He's been kind of knocked on based off of his efficiency, but I like Joe Mixon. He's just getting older. It's kind of showing a resemblance of decline in his statistics and his gameplay, but he's on a really good team. I don't think he belongs in D tier. That's kind of like the argument here is oh, these guys don't belong in D tier for sure. And so that's their tier. They're here. Joe Mixon's a good player. He can catch a couple balls a game. He might be CJ Stroud's guy. He's their guy in Texans on the Texans, but is he going to be CJ Stroud's guy? Is he going to be a dump off guy? Hopefully they build up that trust and he can catch a few balls, get us some more fantasy points, open up the receiving game for Joe Mixon. Okay, last running back in the C tier is James Cook. I do think James Cook is a solid play. If you were to draft him, like I said, is your RB2, RB3. These guys all have a chance of breaking into that B-A tier. I don't see it super likely to become the S tier, kind of fighting for those touches, or receptions. But James Cook's on a good team. They just lost their wide receiver one. They're trying to make it work. I know Josh Allen poaches some vultures, some rushing touchdowns, but I do think that he's still going to be efficient. He's still going to be really good. He still is going to get his receptions between 20s for sure, and that's big. I think those yards will add up in fantasy points and kind of elevate him into that era if he could. But yeah, James Cook, I like him there. Next up, so we're gonna jump into this D tier. They're kind of a little bit more riskier plays. So I'm just saying, I'm a Vikings fan. I truly am. I love Vikings for sure. They're just my team, but I will have to. I really like Aaron Jones. He's been a little more injury prone as of late, but I just don't see him pushing himself, making an argument for him being in the rest of these tiers. C tier, maybe B tier, A tier, S tier. No, I do think he's a little bit older. I'm getting resemblance of maybe Dalvin Cook on his back end of his career, which he's still efficient with us. But when he got traded to the Jets, not saying that Aaron Jones is going to have a season like that, but I do think it's going to be tough. And camp notes have been saying that it's a split backfield actually between him and Ty Chandler, which I do think at the one season starts, so it's going to be Aaron Jones' job, maybe a 70-30 split, something like that. But it's his job, and he's going to be efficient. He's been efficient when he plays. He has been a little injury-riddled over his career, but yeah, Aaron Jones. We'll move on. I do think because of his injury, Jonathan Brooks is going to be in the D tier for me. I don't think his injury is going to hold him back necessarily too much. Updated technology, I think Jonathan Brooks is actually a great draft value if you guys can go get him. I do think that he was super efficient in college. He's gonna be their guy. I feel like the Panthers are gonna have to do their progressions with it's Chuba's job, and then we got Miles Sanders, and it's Jonathan Brooks' job to show us that he's deserving of that. And I do think they invested high draft capital in him, but they kind of have to do their progressions on terms of proving to the public that they're giving Chuba an opportunity. They're giving Miles Sanders an opportunity. And they're kind of rolling through there. And so it's going to be quick. Jonathan Brooks is going to ascend quickly. I do think that it's going to be annoying for Jonathan Brooks managers week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, maybe, because they're going to see his touches increase. Maybe they're not going to be like high value touches, which is going to be frustrating. And then you're going to see Chuba Hubbard come in, red zone touch, and just run it in. And it's going to be really frustrating after Jonathan Brooks just carried the whole drive, and then they pull him out right before they rush for a touchdown. So I do think that's going to be a little frustrating. But I do like him. Next up, we have David Montgomery. So David, everyone's calling him a veteran running back, which he's been in the league for a couple of years. Yes, but he's only like 27. He's entering his running back prime. Those years 27 to 29, and then that drop off when they hit 30, which I think he's super solid. I know I contradict myself with Jahmyr Gibbs, but I do think he's a good running back on a good team. He gets the job done. He's their nose down guy, and I think they love him for sure. Jahmyr likes having him, kind of taking off a workload of him. But I think he's going to put up some valuable fantasy points. I do think his ceiling is actually relatively high. He could even be B tier. If the Lions just want to pound the rock next season, fine by me. I mean, I'll take it. But up next, let's see. I think, who knows? I might actually be wrapped 5, 10, 15, 17, 20. Maybe we do top 24 running backs for you guys. How about that? Maybe we just do that, and then you guys can get off my case. This is where it gets a little tricky. You have all these split running backs. I actually am going to throw Raheem Mostert in this D tier on the off chance that he doesn't get injured. But, I mean, he's going... I don't even know where he's going. I haven't drafted him because he's going so late, and I get a little worried. But I can't argue his ceiling. He was RB, I want to say 4 last season, which was very impressive for a running back of his age. And he came off a couple injuries these past few seasons, so they love him in Miami. He's been a stud. Yeah, I do think it'd be disrespectful not to put him in this D tier. Next up, I honestly... There's not a lot of starting running backs. Well, I'll throw in Brian Robinson. I like Brian Robinson. He has good receiving upside. He can catch the ball. And I do like what Washington's doing right now. They're kind of moving things around, but they're trying to make it work. And I'm not necessarily Jaden McDaniels believer. Jaden Daniels believer, but I do think he's all right. I do think his rushing upside might open up the game, and you never know with rookie quarterbacks. Sorry, I'm messing with my freaking laptop here. What the heck? Yeah, you never know with running backs or running quarterbacks. Sorry. But yeah, I think Brian Robinson is good. He was efficient last season, just on a bad team, and that's why he's in D tier. He's an efficient running back, not widely efficient like other guys up there, but and he's on a bad team. It's kind of holding him back with the rookie quarterback. Same with Aaron Jones. He's got a rookie quarterback. They're not. I wouldn't say the Vikings are bad, but they didn't have a winning season last season. So yeah, hopefully they can do better. But next up, I do think actually Gus falls in this line. They say it's his job, and I know that they have the J.K. Dobbins over there, which is maybe a little frustrating for Gus Edwards managers. I like Gus. I just don't think he's the most efficient. I don't think he's RB1 material on his respective team. So I do think that's going to be challenging for a lot of managers. It might be a little frustrating play, but yeah, he's RB1 so far. They want to pound the rock, and yeah, I think this is where he belongs. He's a starting running back. I don't think any of these like high value starting running backs. I'm going to stay away from these split backfields, not going to lie. I'm going to stop it right here, and I'll just talk about it later. But next up is Ramondre Stevenson. Good running back on a bad team. They extended him. They like him. I do think he can push himself into C tier, maybe even B tier, but that A, S tier would be little far fetched. Maybe A is more realistic. Like there's a higher chance, but S tier, I absolutely don't see that happening. But yeah, I think this is good. I like Ramondre Stevenson. I like saying he's D tier. It makes sense to me. He just doesn't fit where everyone else does. But yeah, I mean, we're going to end it on there. Top 24 running backs, because I believe that is 24, 14, 19, and then 5. Yeah, we got 24 running backs. These last running backs, I do think there's a couple that are missing, actually. Maybe in terms of, they said is Gus Edwards' job, so that makes sense. But like Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, Nick Chubb, it's not a split backfield with him. They're just waiting for Nick Chubb to come back. I do think that he's going to drop in efficiency, but I do think Nick Chubb's going late. So if you do take receivers, a lot of receivers in your draft, you draft receiver heavy, Nick Chubb might not be a bad play. So late in there, you just have to wait for him to come back in the season and help you guys out. But yeah, Tyjae Spears, Tony Pollard, don't like that. James Conner, don't like his situation. DeAndre Swift, they got a mess over there, I'm not going to lie. Blake Cormie's a backup. Trey Benson, he's a backup, yes, but high upside. Javonte, I mean, they got Jaleel McLaughlin over there. So, yeah, I think this is good. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I would like to do, I would like to do more tier breakdowns with, there's a couple tight ends, receivers, quarterbacks, but I do think that these videos tend to get long. But I hope this was helpful to you guys. And enjoy mock drafting. It's kind of coming up here in a month. People are going to start drafting for their teams for the real deal, maybe a month and a half. But the NFL season's not that far away, 2 weeks away. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and if not, I don't care. You guys keep watching. Thank you.